It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by Mastercard Foundation and CC Hub.
In our last two episodes, we explored the range of alternative learning pathways available and how they're being intentionally designed to lead to learning opportunities for young people. This week, we take the conversation a step further by focusing on outcomes, examining the evidence to understand whether these non-formal learning pathways are truly translating into employment and sustainable livelihoods. Welcome back to EdTech Mondays Nigeria, where we have critical conversations about leveraging technology to improve teaching and learning. My name is Nisi Madu, Managing Partner at CC Hub, and I'll be your host as we continue our May series on Beyond the Classroom, Alternative Pathways to Learning and Earning. Let's get right into the conversation. On this episode, I have really amazing guests with me. Our first guest is the head of global operations at Old School Africa, where he drives accessible, tech-enabled education and alternative learning pathways across the continent and beyond. Please welcome Nifemi Akinwamide.
It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. And my second guest is a front-end engineer and community manager at Kids That Code. In 2022, 6 months after high school, she went into pursuit of learning technology and got an internship after her training. She holds a diploma in front-end engineering from Old School Africa. Let's welcome Treasure Ajefu. Treasure, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be a part of this conversation.
Brilliant. So we're going to go straight into the conversation. And Nifemi, I'm going to start with you. So can you talk to us, right, about what skill gaps currently exist, right, for employers and how Old School Africa and the programs that you're designing attempt to plug those skill gaps?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So yes, there are a lot of things that are changing. Again, we're in the global world and things are really changing, especially now that we are in the era of artificial intelligence, right? Some of the things we do is to ensure that our programs are in demand. So we look at what employers are asking for. So for example, one of the things we started to look at is, are people still learning things like front-end engineering? People still need to learn that, just that alone. I'm saying that, okay, I'm just a front-end engineer, just like Treasure is, right? Or we need to start to train people in being full stack, such that front-end side they are good, on the back-end side they are also good. And if companies need them, rather than hire 2 to 3 people to be able to get the product out there, right? You just need one person that has the understanding and the knowledge to do everything, both front end and back end. So I begin to see things like that, right? Because AI is, you needed human beings to talk to machines on your behalf before, but now you can talk to machines directly. And so those lines are becoming blurry, right? And so what we've done as Old School is to ensure that our programs are obviously very in demand. So we've added a few other things like not just program management, but technical program management, such that even if you're learning program management, you have an understanding of what engineering is all about. You have an understanding of what design is all about. You have an understanding of everything around the program cycle. And that's just because we are thinking about from an outcome-based approach, is that when you train people, there has to be some level of outcome. I want to be able to give people that opportunity and then give them a chance.
Thank you very much, Nifemi. I mean, key highlights from what it is that you shared. One is you constantly look at your programs and ensure that they're in demand. And this demand-driven approach is because it's tied to an outcome. And this outcome at the end of the day is that these young people who learn at Old School are able to actually get jobs or basically earn from their skills. And I'm going to come back to double click a bit on, this outcome focus and some of the things that you do to drive that. And coming to you, Treasure, you decided right out of secondary school to consider an alternative pathway. So what was the inspiration for that? What was that pathway that you explored? And what was the experience for you basically going through that?
Okay. So I was someone that already had an interest in tech. And after I finished writing my final exams, I looked at what it would have been like if I decided to go through the traditional going to the university and getting a degree. And normally I would have decided to go for computer science, but I looked at the stuff I already knew and I looked at how much time it would take me to get that degree. and I thought about it, and it didn't exactly seem like something I wanted to do. So I started teaching myself mostly through online free tutorials and documentations and pretty much just learning products. But then again, I'm somebody that has interest in a lot of things. And so it's very easy for me to get sidetracked trying to learn different things at a time. And so that was where Old School Africa came in. So they pretty much helped me figure out the niche that I wanted to go into, which was front end development. And so I spent 1 year getting better in front end development and then getting a diploma, which led to me getting opportunities afterwards. After this, I spread and started learning a couple of other things still around website development, but it pretty much started from that initial self-learning that I did and being able to figure out what exactly it is I wanted to do, which would have not been possible if I had spent 4 years trying to get a degree that might not be very useful to my current tech stack.
Thank you very much for that, Treasure. I think a number of things that you've highlighted there. First one is you decided to start learning on your own, and this was based on the passion and drive that you had to go into tech. And then you found Old School and that was also beneficial for you. And thank you so much for sharing. Now, Nifemi, coming back to you, you talked about focus on outcomes, because at the end of the day, with these alternative pathways, the goal is how do we get young people from learning to earning? And so perhaps you can share a bit about what's the typical duration of programs, and more importantly, what is it that Old School does to get them from learning to earning? How do you, whether it's engaging with industry players, employers, or preparing them, what are some of the things that you do to do that?
Yes. So thanks for that question. Yes, we do, beyond just like you said, learning without an outcome is just a waste of time. And I think that's what Treasure was trying to imply that in a very nice way, when she's not training shit at the traditional university stand. But again, when you think about how our programs are structured, we are not just thinking about on the technical adeptness side of things, right? But thinking about, so part of it is also soft skills, right? Now in the world where we are, it's even more important and more critical to actually have a good idea of soft skills, right? So we're training them in that. We also have mock interviews where we also train them for interviews, so they know what it takes to actually get a job, right? And then we have a career service team that sort of ensures that the best of talents get access to internships. So we have companies reaching out to us from time to time. When you think about the maths between Old School, the way we think about it's a demand and supply problem. You have companies who need good talents. You need to train the talents, you need to make sure that, and then try to match the two together. And that's really what it is that we're doing. And so we have that, engaging with ecosystem folks as well. And it's not just on the Nigerian context, but globally. So you have companies all over them reaching out to say, you know what, we're going to take a few talents from you guys. We put them in an interview and then see if they are what they're sought, right? So we have structures like that. And that's what we've done for the past 3+ years, pretty much. Just leveraging and making sure things are stronger from here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I mean, we have Treasure here, who is an alum of Old School. So that means that the results from that approach. And Treasure, coming back to you, I mean, post your diploma, you were able to get a job, right? Talk to us about what that experience was like. That's going from learning to earning, and what has the experience, your first few, your early days in that job, in that internship, what was that like? Were a number of things you had learned beneficial, for you in making that transition?
So the first few days were kind of tough, I would not lie, because it so happened to be different from what I was used to. Now, prior, I already had somebody that I was working under. It wasn't exactly a job, but I was kind of like shadowing the person. But then again, the process or the structure at which the job took was different, because this time around I had to work under senior developers. I had to learn from them. And so this was where a lot of the things that I learned from Old School came into play. The whole thing about being able to work on tasks that you are being given, being able to properly communicate with the people that I was working with at the time, so that when I ran into setbacks or any blockers, I would be able to notify them, so it wouldn't be something that was going to drag the whole project that we were working on at the time. And so from that job, I moved on to others, and it was pretty much a transfer of skills from every single job that I have been to. From one place to another, I've brought the skills that I have learned from old school and every other place to each one that I go to help me continue being a better asset to the companies that I've worked with.
Thank you so much, Treasure. And I think there's something very interesting I want to highlight, both from what you said, Nifemi, and what Treasure has said. And this is something that previous guests on our previous episodes also said about in alternative pathways of helping young people transition from learning to earning. It's not just about the technical skill. There's a soft skill that is also important. And Treasure just highlighted here that that was a critical element that really helped her to make it easier as she, started working basically in that transition. And you also mentioned that it's a critical element that you infuse in your programming as well. And now my last question to both of you, different questions, but the last one to you, Nifemi, is when we look at Nigeria, we talk about the fact that we have a teeming youth population, and I know Old School is focused on Africa and beyond Nigeria and Africa as well. Yeah. It's a blessing that we have, and we know that for us to convert that into economic growth for the continent, we need to empower young people with these skills to be productive, right? But the thing is, we need to do it at scale. Yeah. And I know that technology is an avenue to make that happen. So perhaps you can share insights from your experience about how technology can be leveraged to do this at scale without compromising on the quality of that learning experience.
Yeah, so thanks for that, right? I think that one of the things we realized early when we started also was that if we're gonna really make the impact and think of scale, like you mentioned, we obviously cannot be forced into physical learning structure in quotes, right? One of the things we invested in is creating a structure where we are whatever we are training people at, we can do it at scale, regardless of wherever they are, whoever you are. We have learners across Mombasa, we have learners everywhere across Africa. At the moment, we have learners in about 140 countries through All Schools ecosystem, right? And the only way we're able to do that effectively is we have like our own learning structure where it is pre-recorded videos that are well done by instructors who are working in the sector. So we have instructors who are working at TikTok, at MasterCard, would come to our own official studio where here in Nigeria and Rwanda, just to be able to bring this knowledge to the table, right? And beyond that, we also have like a structure where we know that the way Africa likes to learn is not just if you think about platforms like Coursera and the others, right? If you realize that many people don't finish their programs. The reason is because also it's just a one-man thing, right? Like you are in your home to figure out your learning. But that's different from us, right? We believe that community, like learning, you cannot remove community out of learning. That's the African way of to learn, right? If you ask Treasure, I'm sure if you ask her, mention 5 people that were in your course, she's going to easily just pick up on it because they are still in touch. They are still figuring out life together. They are still sharing stories together. They are still sharing opportunities together. And that's the idea of what we have done in terms of scale, making sure that regardless of where you are, you still get the same value, the same quality that you will get wherever you are. The only thing you just need is just mobile data, essentially.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Nifemi. And key highlights is, one, you bring experts from industry who absolutely understand, are experts in that area essentially to create those courses. But then there's also a community component to it as well, ensuring that it's not a single not a lonely journey.
Yes.
I think anyone who has learned taking online courses understand that it can be lonely, but that community approach ensures that they're connected even beyond that program. Treasure, my question for you, and this is tied to something that was mentioned in previous episodes where a number of young people, even, either before they take part in some of this type of programs or post it, are afraid to go out of their comfort zone on what they know or what is historically the typical pathway. So my question is, what is your advice to other young people who are listening, who are watching this show, who, want to explore similar paths to what it is that you have explored or take on other alternative pathways to basically moving from learning to earning? What would your charge to them be?
Okay, I think what I would say is for them to try to not follow the crowd. That has to be the most important because from SS3, which is like the final year, most of the things you hear your classmates say is getting prepared to write jam or getting prepared to get into school. And so that mindset is sort of ingrained in almost all young people. And they feel like the only way that they can actually progress is for them to go to school and then get a degree and then get a job. But then again, in this economy, getting a degree is not like the surefire way of getting a job. So if they can try to think outside the whole idea of getting into university straight up, they try to think about other options that they could do. They try to explore learning different things, even if it's just to use a gap year to test out if that particular thing that they're talking about can work. So if they can take a gap year, think about something else aside from school, and then see if it works out. If it does work out, it's perfect. If it doesn't work out, at least they'll know that they've spent that year gaining a skill that will help them when they're trying to, get that degree. So they can try to think about other opportunities that are aside what everybody would usually go for, which is going to school, and try to see if they can learn something, even if it's not like a tech skill that would be able to help them gain access to more opportunities that a degree in the current state of the country might not be able to get them.
Thank you, Treasurer. I think key highlights there is one, they should be open to exploring other pathways, and they should be willing to try it out, even if it's a gap year, to be able to explore those interests or those opportunities that might come, that might be available to them. Thank you so much. And I think that is also tied to something you said about chasing their passions, right? You were passionate about technology, was something that you wanted to do, and you also focused on that. And so, the alternative pathways that exist, and it's something that they could take advantage of as well. Thank you so much for your time, Treasure and Nifemi. It's been great having this conversation with you. And until our next episode. On this episode, we have seen evidence of what it takes to move from alternative learning pathways into earning. One thing is clear: training alone is not the end goal. Building employability skills and enabling sustainable livelihoods is. And so we leave you with this question: are we solving the right problem, or simply training more people without addressing the employability challenge? Share your thoughts with us on social media or via SMS or WhatsApp at 0703 165 0809 or call 0706 402 0742. Until next week, I remain your host, Nisi Madu. Bye for now.
Tech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.